I'm David Glenn Taylor, and this is the Voyagers Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, a few important notes. This is the final episode of Season 1 of the Voyagers. For this episode, I wanted to just talk to some friends, have a wee dram of whiskey, share some good stories. So, this episode is just that, a meeting of the Doomed Whisky Club. Quick history on the DWC, we've never actually met together in person. We've all met, we've just never been able to get together, the three of us. Ben Kelly, DJ Spencer Lee, and myself, we really tried to make it happen many times, but it just never worked out. So we began sharing our stories over text, sending pictures of what we were sipping, and the name The Doomed Whisky Club was coined, and it stuck. This episode today is our first virtual meeting on Zoom. Ben and Spencer both fascinate me. They come from opposite sides of the spectrum. After working for SpaceX building launch pads for rockets, Ben started his own outfit, a launch company, and he's working on some amazing stuff, which you'll hear about. Spencer has been the ruling king of all DJs in the state of Alaska for many years now, and his observations on music and energy are priceless. And whiskey, well, as some of you know, my grandfather was a Scot. My passion for Scotch whiskey is rivaled only by my passion for my family. So please, pull up a comfy chair, pour a wee dram, enjoy this lovely conversation with my friends, and stay for the finish. At the end, Ben tells one of the more heartwarming whiskey stories I've ever heard. Cheers, friends. I am drinking the Lagavulin Nick Offerman edition, 11 year. It's really, have you tried this one?
Have I had that? I don't actually, you know what? I don't think I have. I don't think I've had it.
Have you ever had the Kailila 12 year?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very close to that. It's that nice kind of a lighter, because the 16 year Lagavulin, right, it's got that really strong kind of burn your tongue off kind of peat to it. This is much more mellow.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, very drinkable.
Okay.
Very Nick Offerman. DJ Spencer Lee's in.
Yo, what's
up,
up,
Spence?
Not much.
You're in your car again.
Yeah, this is my spot, man. Are we recording already?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we're just recording. We're
live.
drinking.
Yeah.
Kilchoman? You guys could probably tell me how to pronounce that better. Kilchoman?
Oh, it's Kilchoman. Yeah, Kilchoman. Yeah, the CH is a hard K. You're doing the Isla. I'm doing the Lagavulin 11 Nick Offerman edition.
Is that good?
I was telling Ben, it's like if you've had the Kailila, the 12 year Kailila, it's very similar to that, right? Which is it's just such a remarkably drinkable peated whiskey. This one's right there. I'd say this is just like literally like 5% more in terms of some pop to it, but it's right in that same spot. Mm-hmm. But Ben doesn't have any whiskey.
Ben, you had one job.
True. We can't all be golden like you, my friend. Some of us just got to make do with what we got, and I'm trying my best.
Let me ask you something, Ben. You're in hardcore entrepreneur mode right now, like where you are building a business from scratch and starting. What do you have? What's your practice that you have right now for dealing with the stress?
What a great question. So the ideal practice is not always employed. I'll tell you that. I think really like the number one thing I found is like just moving my body, like going for a run. In the last 7 days, I've probably been on 4. Because even if they're just little 2-milers, if I just do a quick, 15, 20 minute, whatever, it's just about clearing the chemicals out of the brain and starting over. Jenny, my partner's helped me get into meditation. It was something I was on and off with since 2016, but we've really worked at building that into more of a practice. And I find that like when I get close to having had, kind of like my emotional limit, that's a good way to reset. And really, like, I know Spencer will get a kick out of this, but like I gave up caffeine in March and I haven't had it since. And I actually think that was the single biggest game changer for me.
Whoa.
Yeah. Unbelievable game changer. Cause like now I'm making decisions I just sleep better. I feel better. I'm making more clear-headed decisions. And when I realized what was going on was in grad school, you're frantic, you're running around, you're doing a lot of things. Maybe caffeine's helpful, maybe it's not. But when I was at SpaceX, it was actually useful because I was outside on my feet. And so I'm walking around the barge or I'm walking around a launch site and I'm metabolizing it. I'm burning it off. But now in entrepreneur mode, I'm mostly at a keyboard and I'm not burning that caffeine off through the tips of my fingers on the keyboard. And so I started to have some anxiety challenges, if I'm honest with you, things that I was making mountains out of molehills. And Jenny, again, all credit to her, was like, hey, I gave it caffeine and it seems like maybe you should think about it. And I was like, no way. Never in a million years. And then I had a really tough day where a vendor shorted us, or they didn't short us, they just didn't pay us. They owed us $90,000 and didn't pay. And I was getting close to like, I needed that.
Right.
And I just, instead of being like myself, which is like, okay, think of the solution, like call the bank, like call your vendors and see if maybe you can delay payments. Like, well, instead I was just like, well, everything's messed up now, and I was just like, oh, okay, I got to dump the caffeine. And I went cold turkey. That was actually, and it coincidentally at the start of the pandemic, we didn't know yet, but that was right at the end of February. And yeah, I felt fantastic sense. So that's a lot of it. It's just long answer to a short question, but it's just exercise, meditation, and getting rid of the caffeine. What about you? What do you do?
I know I should give up caffeine. I know it. And every time I have, and I did like a cleanse a little while ago, everything you were describing happened. I slept better. Everything was better. My whole body was better. My intestines, my bowels, everything was just better. But man, I love coffee. I love coffee.
I make a French press of decaf every day.
Decaf? Oh,
yeah.
I guess they have that as a thing, isn't it?
Total thing. And you know what? The thing, I tried to use that too. And the thing I complained about early on was like, this decaf is not very good. Like, it's just not the same. And it's like, but you know what? There's actually Kaladi's in Anchorage makes some really great decaf, as does Steam Dot. So if you're in the Alaska area, there's some stuff down here. And down here, I've been going to just like the grocery store, and it's been a lot more hit or miss.
Actually, speaking of in the Alaska area, Spence is in his car, in his garage, in the Alaska area. How's the weather up there, man?
It's like, it's not that nice warm cold when you've got snow on the ground and everything's more bright. It's still like wet, soggy kind of cold.
Not the powdery kind of lovely stuff. This is the Doomed Whisky Club, and our listeners are all aware of how doomed we are, which is fitting because this is why Ben doesn't have any whiskey. And, because there's a doomed element to just every time that we try and get together. I'm almost really scared to ask you guys to come to the island. I'm like, don't come to the island. It's not safe. I wanted to ask you where your top whiskey experience, and if you could share it. Spence, if you could go, you tell what was your best whiskey experience you've had thus far?
Probably the Whiskey Library.
Yeah, Spence, the Whiskey Library?
Yeah.
Where's that?
In Portland.
Oh.
And it's like a giant library of whiskeys, and they're up on shelves with ladders and everything, and it's like every whiskey you can think of and want, and they hand you a book, and it's like, pick it, here we go. And that was just kind of cool because it was just so surreal, right? It was like, I'm in whiskey lover land.
Wow.
So that was.
Do you remember what you had?
I was drinking Japanese stuff. I like Japanese stuff, and I think that's what I was having. I can't remember exactly. It was before Japanese prices went super crazy, so probably some Yamazaki.
Right. I still haven't had the Yamazaki yet. I still have not. Every time I go to buy whiskey, I end up buying Scotland. I end up buying Scotch. My cabinet's getting really low right now because I told myself I wasn't going to buy a new bottle of whiskey until the pandemic and it was over, or I had a job again. I've been unemployed really since March. I need income. So this little group, one of the cool things about us is that all three of us have gone through the Entrepreneurial Grinder, right? We've all, Spence, you're a DJ and you've got your whole company with DJ Spencer Lee. And then Ben, you're doing this thing now. And with building rocket launching pads. And I started a little design firm called Sugar Sled. And then later on, I started a branding agency called Element. I didn't know how to deal with stress when I started, and I ended up literally suicidal. I ended up just destroying. I ended up with cancer, and this is 2009. And I was pulling 20-hour days. Didn't know. I just did not know what was going on in terms. I couldn't handle everything coming from every direction because, you're talking about vendors not paying and going. That's not the thing you ever kind of wanted to do, right? That's not the thing you joined for. You thought you'd kind of start something and build something, make something beautiful. And as a designer, as a branding designer, I was always like, I'm going to just make cool logo designs for people and stuff like that. Instead, you're dealing with all of the craziness. And after I had my full on Jerry Maguire style, breakthrough.
Yeah.
I ended up with a shaman in Anchorage at this place. There's this place called the White Raven Center in Anchorage. You ever heard of it, Spence?
Yeah, we talked about it. I think he's down the road from me. He's over here.
Yeah. Right? He's really close to you. Yeah, White Raven Center is really close. It's just over in the neighborhood, just off the highway. And in East Anchorage.
I'm gonna check that out.
And I ended up with that guy, with Floyd and his wife, Marianne, over there doing a bunch of like healing work, like what they call soul retrieval, like going back and dealing with these parts of myself, these young parts of myself that were just like expressing themselves through all this trauma. You know, because like you can look around and you can see successful businessmen all the time doing successful business. You know, you see some guy running an agency with 35 people in it or something like that and going, yeah, and somehow he's surviving, he's making it okay. And me, I end up like, you know, ready to like blow my brains out. And that doesn't make sense, right? Because I'm a smart guy. You're a smart guy. We're all intelligent people. You know, Floyd was basically like, oh yeah, I mean, you're ready to heal now. You're ready to go back. And he started teaching me how to do this. And then, so now I have a meditation practice. But a lot of it's because I did essentially like a year of healing work after that. Even hard stuff, it didn't hit my body so hard. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's what I do.
Well, that's fantastic. I do know what you mean about like getting that separation. I think for me, my burnout came initially after building the first launch site with SpaceX and getting a rocket off the ground, and then going and doing the barge. I was really burnt out, and I've been doing a lot of meditation work, but I finally took the next step and started doing therapy this year as well. And ended up, I think I was telling you a little bit about this lady I ended up with. She's fantastic. She works through like Jungian archetypes, and she has does a lot of work essentially, kind of on old soul past life, sort of like, you know, how'd you get to where you are, even if it was in this lifetime, you know, who were you before that did these things and brought you to this point? And it's been really great. It's been fantastic. And she's given me some mantra work to do and in my meditations and stuff that has helped a lot. And I think like initially, you know, not being skeptical as much as just being ignorant, not realizing that there was these other modalities that I could even get access to. Cause I've always been pretty turned off by the Western approach of just like medicate and numb, and has been a real eye opener. And so it's really nice to be able to connect with you guys and explore that a little bit more and know that there's other people out there facing that. Because like you said, now the problems, like, you know, I was expressed at the top of the call, today was a tough day, but I'm still here with a smile on my face at the end of a close to 12-hour day. Whereas back in the old days, I would have been just fried. I would have just been laying on the couch staring at the ceiling, you know? And so, yeah, it's nice to be able to like mark that progress and know that you're making some progress. Essential. Like if you don't have it, like you're going nowhere. I mean, and your business is going to end up requiring it, and then all your employees are going to benefit from that. It's huge, man. Yeah. It's really funny you say that, because like that was part of what finally pushed me over, is like, man, like I'm really responsible for not just my own good outcomes, but the thing that first pushed me into it in 2016 was knowing that I was going to have, you know, Emerson, my daughter. And I was just like, man, I got to be that person that she deserves, to be that little spirit guide to help her through this weird world. And that got me into the water. And then what kind of pushed me out to sea and you know, forced me to learn some sailing skills, if I beat the metaphor to death, was realizing that I've got these people's livelihoods in my hands. Like all my employees, like, you know, have families and house payments and car payments. And I was like, me not being at my best is hurting them as well. It's no longer just a selfish act of self-sabotage. It's also like hurting these people that show up and work hard for this dream that we're trying to like co-author every single day. And that was tough. So that was when it's like, okay, time to like straighten up. Not that everything was ever too bad. It was just, I was putting off the work. And it's obviously something that's still in process, but it was really important to start, and it feels good to have made, you know, some steps along the path, I think. You get people to dance for a living. That's not stressful. Well, you know, what's funny is like that was my stress relief, was playing music loud and dancing and just being in that environment. And so that was one thing the pandemic taught me, was like, I have to find out a whole new coping mechanism, because buried within my job, I had mine, right? I had that release where I'm playing music loud and I'm just, you know, energy is just going out and it's coming in and I'm doing it. And so music is still a big part of that. So just finding time to listen to music, you know, helps me out. Like that's a quick mood switch for me if I need it. And then laughing, like as corny as that, these both sound like music and laughter, but like watching a stand-up special on Netflix or something like that will sometimes flip that switch for me and just kind of get me out of my head and just get me laughing. And like, those are things that help. And then, but, you know, I try to do physical stuff, but a lot of times it's with my kids. So there's like this, we're out and hiking, but I'm also kind of dealing with like making sure they're okay, or, you know, whatever. Right. So it's not always like a quote unquote pure, like, you know, experience. Like
but it's still a lot
It's
of
a
fun
dad
with them.
experience.
And I
There's a
get
reason why they call it the dad bod, man. It's cool.
yeah. You know, seeing them enjoy things brings me a level of joy that like is great.
How old are your twins now?
6.5.
6.5. And Ben, Emerson's how old?
She's just turned 4 at the end of July, so yeah,
so
not quite even 4 now.
Guys are in little kid land still, man. It's a great space to be in, man. I miss it in the sense that because it was actually much simpler, like when they were little. I know it's exhausting and everything, but it's simpler. You know, I have a 11, 14, and 21, and it's way more brain heavy. Like, you know, you're really having long, like my 21-year-old he's dealing with, you know, he's in college in Virginia and he's dealing with the drama and of a girl, and he's trying to figure out, like, you know, he's lonely and he's like, I wish I wasn't here. I want to move back to the West. And I'm, you know, trying to give him advice, trying to get sort through that stuff like that. It kind of wears me out a bit. And when they were little, they were just, okay, got to get them to the park, got to get them out in nature, got to get them fed relatively nutritious meal. You know, 4 is such a great age. 4 is fantastic.
I had to explain dark money to my kids today because of all the political commercials on TV. So
how'd that go over? They're like, yeah.
I think they kind of got it,
too.
But Ethan was like, oh, like in The Mandalorian, right? Where like he doesn't know who to trust. And I was like, yeah, that's analogous, I guess.
That works. I mean, some of the politics in The Mandalorian totally apply right now. Ben, are you living in California now? Or are you still living in Anchorage?
No. We live in Anchorage. We actually just bought a house over in Turnagain.
Oh,
I think we've spent 3 nights in it because we've been doing an extended job. I usually don't go in bed in companies anymore for my work at LaunchCo. But this was my first boss that I ever had at SpaceX, is a VP over there. And he called me and was like, hey, we've got this really cool job. I really need some help getting it off the ground. Like, would you come down and help for 3 months? And Jen and I were both kind of like, yeah, let's go. It change the scenery. Let's see what's going on. And so we've been down here for two and almost a half of them. So we're getting ready to go back to Anchorage here pretty shortly.
What exactly? I mean, can you talk about?
So we'll be back by mid-November.
What is the job you're doing? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm at this company. My company is called The Launch Company, and we're doing work at Relativity Space. Relativity Space claim to fame is they're building the world's first 3D printed rocket. So they've got these huge robotic beads that are, I shouldn't say the exact number, but taller than you in diameter. And essentially they lay up these layers to build the tanks and the skin of this rocket.
With a 3D printer?
Then there's another process like not one that you can picture. Imagine a giant robotic arm on a pedestal so that can articulate in any direction.
Yeah.
And below it is a platform, and that platform spins like almost like a pottery wheel, just very, very slow. So now you can imagine that robot head is just depositing printed metal, and the table is spinning to make it round. And it can come in and out to alter the shape of the tank or the fairing or whatever it happens to be printing at the time. It could do square. You know, you could turn the table partially and make a straight line, turn 90 degrees and make a straight line. So it can do any geometry based on changing the rotation and then changing the actual position of the arm. And the arm climbs. It climbs up this huge cell so it can print these very, very tall tank sections. Yeah.
Okay, wait, what kind of metal is it? And it's liquid metal and then it cools?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to think about it. It does go through a brief liquid period. So it comes in as a solid, it briefly melts, and then it cools and becomes solid again. And they're using a couple different types of metal, but for, you know, like tanks and stuff, or skin, for the skin and the fairing, you just use like an aluminum. And then there's a separate actually 3D printing process, which takes powder. So it's just metal powder. It's very clean, and it uses a laser to melt it together. And that's how they build their engines. And so they build these engine parts, and it's called direct metal laser sintering, DMLS. And so these like printed parts come out, and then we finish them and assemble everything. And so it's going to be the world's first 3D printed rocket. And so I'm down here helping them get some of the manufacturing capability online and up to speed. And yeah, just kind of like, it's almost like a startup within a startup. We got a scrappy little team, and we're just trying to get machines on the floor and get things going. And there's people over in the print cells just printing all day long, 24/7, creating these like flight parts. And we're trying to get all the processing equipment ready so that we can assemble them into a rocket. It's pretty cool. It's a fun thing to be a part of.
That's bananas.
Outside of the novelty of it being completely 3D printed, why else would you want to do it like that?
Yeah, what's the functionality of it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So there's two things. One, the immediate answer is that if you can imagine a traditional manufacturing line, you have to have form presses, or you have to be stamping steel, and then everything has to be in a perfect row such that you're putting the rocket together. So like in a SpaceX factory, we're spin forming nozzles for engines. We're assembling different engine parts that have been machined from billets, like blocks of steel. And then there's maybe a big friction stir welder, which is rolling these sheets into a big tank and then friction stir welding the seam. And so if any part of that process gets slow, or worse, if you want to make a change to the diameter of the rocket or to the thickness or whatever, you're talking about retooling a factory. This is something that people in traditional manufacturing kind of run into all the time. It's like, we got to retool the factory. So that can cost, easily millions, guaranteed millions, and to be tens of millions of dollars to retool a factory. And so the types of machines we're looking at are a few $1 million a piece, and we need a bunch of them to get this work done. And so the advantage to 3D printing is, in this case, is if we send something to the testing and we go, we don't like this doesn't look right, then it's like, cool, update the design and print a new one. And that's a pretty big deal. And then the second piece is, if you can imagine these robot arms are all, say, making different parts of the rocket, if one of them is behind, you can tell a different part of the factory, hey, make this part we're behind on, because it's no longer specialty tooling, it's general purpose tooling. Everything is a printer. And so we can catch up and re-catch up production by having more general purpose tools. For me personally, like, the rocket thing is cool, obviously, like that's what Launch Company does. But for me, it's really interesting because it feels like the start of the first really focused attempt to build a new type of factory. Like, what other cool things could be built this way? And to be on the ground floor and see how that's put together is really a neat thing.
I'd like to nominate Ben for smartest member of the Doomed Whisky Club. He'll be head of our academic wing. Spence.
I'll give you a reluctant second.
Yeah, reluctant second. So I'm going to raise my glass to you there, sir, Slanja. My God. I have to sip. Hold on. Oh, that's fantastic. That makes my brain hurt just a little bit. I'm hearing you, and I've read enough space books now. I guess space books. I'm trying to understand, because here's one of the things that's kind of blowing my mind. I don't know if you got to hear it, but I think it was episode 4. We had Paul Jeffries, who's he's the execution integration manager for the solar telescope, the NSA solar telescope, the most advanced solar telescope. I don't know if you haven't heard that episode, you should listen to it, because you two guys would probably have a great time. And he's from Northern Ireland, and he's also a wonderful whiskey aficionado. So him and I have had quite a few really good whiskeys and just talked. But same kind of thing, like sitting and listening to having a conversation with him and trying to, okay, I'm following you. But then one day I was like, I'm not going to understand this unless I understand the math, right? Not fully. And he goes, right. He said, right. In the end, the guys who really understand, the guys that are like what you're describing, that are building these machines and stuff like that, they've got equations and math and stuff going through their head that I'm not going to understand. Unless I know the math, right? It's like its own language.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think, like, the way I would describe it, maybe just a slight tweak on that, is like, there's 3 modes of heat transfer. I don't know if you know this, but there's only 3 ways to transfer heat, and you already know all 3 of them. How can you warm something up? You can touch it. Mm-hmm. You can cool off your suit by blowing on it, or you feel the sun radiating on it. So qualitatively how heat transfers. But then when you dig into the math and it's partial differential equations, talking about convective boundary layers and new salt numbers and all sorts of that's that next level. And so this is how you get young people interested hey, like, don't you wonder why blowing on your suit makes it cooler? And and then if you start to dig into those things, and I think that's the kind of thing. So I think you guys have that natural curiosity that you can absolutely understand it. But then if you want to go that next level, like, yeah, but I want to build it, I want to make it real. It's like, all right, well then that's when you got to start jumping into the deep end a little bit. But I think absolutely, like, it's one of those things that, like, is interesting to everybody. Like, it's a cool thing, and you can wrap your head around it for sure.
Thinking about Spence's career, and like, you guys are in polar, like literally the opposite. Like, I would say this guy's building rocket launching pads over here. This guy's over here is making people like kids and little people and teaching them all how to dance. Spencer taught me how to dance. I say this, and I've told the story a million times. I was the most inhibited guy. I just didn't, and my wife has taught me for years. She's the one that's always tried to pull me out of that space and try and give me more courage and confidence to do things. And we went to a wedding in St. Louis of our friends, Steve and Marcy, that, you know, how just awesome people. And we get out there to St. Louis. Spence is like DJing the party after the wedding. I don't think I even knew he was going to be out there, but we get out there. The only people we know are a few people from Anchorage, Spencer and the bride and groom, right? And we're on this rooftop in this kind of old part of St. Louis in this killer venue. He started playing music. He's playing music. He's up there DJing and stuff like that. And I was nervous. And my wife goes, "You got a friend here doing music. Like, you got a good friend who just got married." She said, this is the time. This is the time to just let loose, to let it go, you know? Spence, did I tell you that tonight? I don't know, because I had so much fun that night, because I really, for the first time, let it go. And I remember watching you do your thing, and I'm watching him do his thing, and he's up there just as comfortable as can be. Just, this is my environment. This is my world. So like when you're describing, Spence, when you're describing like that energy, you're telling me you haven't gotten to do much of that during the whole pandemic, eh?
No, because it's kind of a unique dynamic, right? It's kind of hard to replicate, and it's fun. And I'm glad you said that. I was so stressed out a lot of that entire wedding.
Really?
So the other part of that, yeah.
Man, you pulled it off, dude.
The logistics of like getting to St. Louis, getting the gear, getting everything on the rooftop, you know, going to the ceremony, then coming back and da-da-da-da-da. It was like, oh, man.
That was the funnest wedding I've ever been to. And you were like such a part of that, man.
I was going to give you a huge shout out. Like, it's not just weddings. Like, if you've ever gone to like Spinard prom, like
see, that's the thing, bro. Like when I lived there, like when I lived in Anchorage, I was like drowning in business starting and trying to just do all this stuff like that. In the meantime, like Spencer, I got to know Spencer a little bit, and I look back now, and a lot of it because of that wedding. And it was all around the time when we were moving to Hawaii, where I go, man, I wish I had been like, hey, I'm going. I want to, whatever you're doing, I want to go. And I want to just like, teach me how to let go. I mean, bro, like this can't be a unique story though. I'm sure you hear this kind of stuff all the time, right? People coming to your parties and like just.
Ben's hung out in my back pocket.
Yep. I was gonna tell that story.
Ben's hung out in my back pocket at gigs a couple times.
Wait, tell me, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, yeah, like, let me set the stage though before he tells you. Like, I was literally at home, slippers on, PJs on, reading a book, candles lit. You know, it's like 7:30 on a Friday. I'm done. I'm over it. It's just been a long week. I'm winding down like the middle-aged person that I feel like I am. And Spencer's texting me, "Come out. You got to come out. Come out." And so against all of my natural instincts, I'm a little bit inhibited maybe myself. I go, and yeah, I pretty much, stood in his back pocket and just like enjoyed the night. Spence, I mean, you could describe it way better than me.
It's just fun. I mean, there's two things that are interesting. Is like when we talked about that energy from the crowd, but other than that, you're really up there alone, right? So to have somebody to kind of be an ally back behind the booth and that you can like talk to, like, hey, I'm going to try and play this record. We'll see if it works, you know, or, you know, just to have that like separate dynamic outside of just like projecting in a room is a lot of fun to have. So that was crucial. Ben came through and yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen at one of your parties, bro?
I mean, lots of clothes coming off, of course, are natural stories, and people just acting wild, you know, people handing me pint glasses full of Jameson, you know.
Pint? Could be worse, man. You could be getting some Jack Daniels or something like that. That's not, you know.
Yeah.
Holy cow. When you got handed the pint of Jameson's, did you drink it?
Kind of. I spilled it a little bit trying to cheers the guy, and then I put it down somewhere, and he brought me two. So it was just one of those nights.
Can you DJ drunk?
But,
have you ever just gotten totally wasted when you're actually doing one of these parties and then actually been able to pull it off? Because that would be hard, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it's kind of an occupational hazard.
Right.
So there's a fine line between getting as loose as the crowd is and getting to the point where you start making decisions that are maybe in your best interest and not the crowd's. And sometimes those can be two different things.
Yeah, I'm assuming, you know what I mean? Like, better at it as you've gotten older.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it for 18 years. So yeah, but honestly, that's the thing that if I'm talking to younger DJs, it's like, don't get too drunk.
Right.
You'll do a bad job and you'll get fired.
At your parties though, like you're managing so much more than just music, right? So like at Jams for Fans, which I took Emerson to, like there's grab bags and there's events and there's like things happening and like he's going through and doing music, but he's also coming off the stage and coordinating all other aspects of a party that like a couple hundred people are at, right?
Yeah.
And then going back on stage to like keep the thing moving. So it's like a ton of logistics work. I mean, it's like, I see it as a fellow Virgo. I see it. Like I get
Dude,
it.
that's gotta be so draining, man. But I would love to be like, on Spence's porch when he gets home after one of those jams for fams, the kids ones that you do, the baby disco stuff, where the families are out there, like the moose's tooth, or the bear tooth or whatever, and then you get home. That's got to be interesting to see. Honey, I'm home kind of thing. How are your ears, man? Can you hear?
Yeah. I can hear well, and I do a lot of things to make sure that like I don't have too loud of sound on me. I've got like special earplugs and things like that, but a lot of times I'll have a booth monitor and I'll just turn it down when I'm not using it. So yeah, the Jams for Fams is my family dance party for parents with young kids, and like we were talking entrepreneurs, like who doesn't, as an entrepreneur, you want a challenge. So it's like, instead of just being the guy who gets plugged into events as a talent, it's can I create my own event with everything that I've learned and make it the best and execute my vision. And that's kind of what that one.
Have you ever had one of those at one of your parties, ever had like what you could call a kind of a euphoric enlightenment kind of episode where something happens and you're just like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen kind of thing?
I don't know. Those aren't usually terms I would use to describe a party. And
I guess I've always been curious if you're up there DJing and if you ever have one of those kind of singular where everything kind of becomes very present and you're just like, yes, you know what I'm talking about? I know you've had those experiences.
Yeah. No, those happen. Yeah, for sure. And they happen and you live in them and you relish them. And then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, what record am I going to play next? And how am I going to maintain this?
Right.
And kind of, but yeah, no, it's fun to do that. And I like that. One of the things I tell myself too, sometimes when I'm DJing or doing events is like, don't fight it. Right. Like look at what's going on and just embrace it and don't fight it. And if the crowd wants to go one way and maybe you don't want to, like just lean into it. And like, if that's what they want, give it to them and don't fight it.
So if it's like
that's a super solid lesson.
Yeah, exactly. It is. You got a euphoric moment, Ben?
You know what? I do, but usually it's not at all. It's never work related. There's times when things come to a head and things go good or things go bad, and either way you take a step back and go, either like, wow, this is great, or damn, this is bad. And the entrepreneurship roller coaster. But for me, the euphoric moments are always family related or some sort of creative pursuit, more akin to what you're describing. But I will say, I want to tell a quick story about Spencer. And Spencer, you have the ability to say you want this edited out. But
well, let me hear the story first. I have veto power.
This is a moment where you're present in the crowd, and back to the original topic, he might have been riding the line between drinking too much and DJing. We were at adult end of summer camp. Was that 2015? Well, that's like a long time ago, maybe 2016. And we are all having a great time. I mean, it was a group meditation. We're down at the lake. We're playing. We're having, like, life is good. We're all adult summer camping, right? Learning like salsa lessons, all sorts of cool stuff happening. There's a dance party, and Spencer is the DJ. And we'd had a few to drink, before things are getting going, and while things are going, it's a get together or whatever. And Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park had just passed away, which is super tragic and super sad. And we're halfway through, and the nights maybe go further. The nights maybe even starting to wind down. And Spencer goes, "Hey man, I'm gonna hit him with the Lincoln Park." And he starts playing. I think it was like, I don't even remember. He starts playing some Lincoln Park song, and then right as it's about to drop, he cuts the music and he just whispers into the microphone, "Rest in peace, Chester," and then like drops the song back on, and the entire room went insane. Like, I've literally never seen anything like it. Like, I thought it was one of those things where people would be just like mildly confused, or they'd be like, "What happened?" But literally everybody seemed to have like they felt the energy, they felt what he was doing, and they knew like we were all of the same age. Like, we probably all were listening to, or at least knew of Lincoln Park in middle school. And it was just like the most surreal thing where like, if you try that 9 times out of 10, like that doesn't work. But Spencer just like rode the energy. He knew the room, like what he's talking about. He just like knew this was going to hit somewhere inside his body, and it just hit. And it was like, I was laughing so hard because it was so silly. There was no way that should have worked, but it worked perfectly, and everybody loved it.
Yes. See, this is my thing. You created that moment. Like, you went on gut. That was instinct, right? Did you plan on that, or were you just going with it?
Sometimes you'll kind of know topically or thematically kind of where things are in the world and what people might respond to based on like kind of what just because people consume so much social media. So if something's really present on that,
Right.
you can figure out that it's probably part of what they'll be thinking about.
That's so beautiful.
The caveat, Ben, it was like I waited till like the end of the night because that is a right time, right place thing. And I typically don't play a lot of Linkin Park. No disrespect to Chester.
No, I know. It was a total mood shift
That's crazy. I wish
as
man,
well.
that's awesome.
I was going to tell you my Scotch story. I was going to tell you about how
Okay, yeah.
Lagavulin 49 out of the cask. Do you have
Lagavulin,
2 minutes
what?
for that?
Holy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Tell me.
You have 2 minutes for that? All right.
Yes.
I know you got to go. Spencer's heard
No,
this story
do it.
55 times. Okay. All right. So you were asking us about our best whiskey moment.
Yes.
And mine, I love Spencer's. The whiskey library is fantastic. It's such a cool place. For me, it was, unfortunately, it kicked off. My dad passed away, and he never got to go to Scotland. And he was, my whole life growing up, oh, boys, we're going to go to Scotland. It's going to be great. This is what it's going to be like, blah, 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 blah. And he didn't get to go. And so after he passed, he was cremated, and we were like, well, let's spread Dad's ashes in Scotland. And so there's a Kelly Castle there spelled the same way. And so we went there and spread some in the gardens. You know, hopefully they don't listen to this and get mad. So I don't think they would love it. And then we made the trek out to Isla, and we took the ferry out. Nice. And we naturally ended up in Lagavulin. I mean, I've been drinking Lagavulin with my dad for a very long time, and you know, it was pretty much like a family drink type thing. It was just like there's always a bottle of Lagavulin around. You could always have a sip, sit up late with Dad and talk about life. And anyway, we go and do the tour, and we brought some of my dad's ashes, and we're kind of hanging back like, oh, I don't want to bother these guys. They're busy, whatever. And you know, you're drinking the Nick Offerman 11. If you watch that episode of Parks and Rec, Ian, that is their master distiller there, he did our tour. And at the end, he had rolled out these barrels. He goes, this is, you know, the deluxe tour. You get to try the 11, the 13, the 17, and the 22, something like that. And maybe a 30 some odd, 35. And I was like, wow. And we all just get a taste of it, and it's so good. And my mom doesn't really drink at all, and she certainly doesn't drink Scotch, but she's participating because this is like for, you know, our dad and her husband, and so but she ends up getting a little buzz. And so at the end, I kind of hang back and I go, hey Ian, I just want to let you know, we came here all the way from Alaska. My dad passed away, and we were hoping that it would be okay with the people here at Lagavulin if we went down to the bay, to the cove there, and just poured some of his ashes out by the edge of the water and had a drink and just said some words in his memory. And I was like, you know, I bought this bottle in your gift shop, you know, would that be all right? And he goes, put that bottle away. I don't want to see that again. He's like, you're gonna have a drink, and I'm gonna join you, and we're drinking Lagavulin from the barrel. And I was like, wow, what an honor, you know, it's so cool, what a cool guy. Well, I buried the lead a little bit in that he liked our tour group. It was just a nice group of young people, and that were all really happy and go lucky. And he's like, I'm gonna give you guys a treat. We keep a barrel of Lagavulin 49 in the back. And I don't remember exactly the year. It says, like, do the math on the spot, but I mean, I've got a picture of it. It says 1969 on the barrel.
Oh my goodness.
It's about to no longer essentially be legally Scotch, because Scotch can't be aged over 50 years. You know, you keep losing all the angel share and stuff. Yeah. And so he's like, gives us the tiniest little taste. Well, he turns to my mom after he says, you're going to have some out of the barrel. And he goes, hey, lass, what was your favorite Scotch you tried today? And I swear to God, my mom, bless her heart, the next words out of her mouth is, I like that 49. And I go, no. I was like, hey, look, I was like, that 11 was really good. Let's just drink the 11. Let's drink the 11, you know. And he's like, if the young lady wants 49-year-old Scotch, the young lady shall have. And he rolls this barrel back out. We pull it out, draw it out, and now instead of just wetting our whistle, he's like filling the cups with it. And there's like chunks of charcoal floating in our little Glencairn glasses. And we start telling stories. This is kind of our thing. We tell a lot of stories. And he's a storyteller, and he's a bit of a bullshitter too. And we all just start going around, we're laughing, we're telling stories. Pretty soon we've had 4 or 5 of these. We haven't even made it down to the water yet. We're still standing in the blockhouse. And so we he's like, all right, boys, down to the water. And he fills up, my brother, his fiance was there. I was there on my own, and my mom. He fills all 4 of our glasses, and we go down to the water. And he says a really nice Celtic blessing. We spread my dad's ashes. We all drink one more. And, hugs all around. It was really, really cool. I mean, we're drinking this like insane scotch that it's just like you can't get your hands on. And it's just flowing like water. And, it was this thing that I went away with where it was like, Lagavulin was already like, the kind of the family, like scotch was like, this is the one. But after that, holy smokes, it's just like embedded, what a cool thing. It would have been so easy for them to just be like, oh yeah, go down to the water. Or, no, don't go at all. And, blah, blah, blah. But he spent time with us. He told us stories. He shared, from his own life. And like, that's what drinking good whiskey is all about, right? It's the storytelling and the connection. It was such a magical moment. And then the hard work happened of helping my mom walk 2 or 3 miles back to Port Ellen down the path, get into the Airbnb.
2 miles, right? That's because Lagavulin's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Hardbake's 3 miles out. Hardbake's the end of the room. So anyway, that was our day. It was crazy day.
That's one of the best whiskey stories I've ever heard, bro.
Glad I got to share it with you. Glad I got to share it with the Doomed Whisky Club.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna call it at that, man. We're gonna end with that. That's fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks for spending the time, guys. I appreciate it.
Dude, you guys, thank you. We'll do this again. We'll We'll bring it to the people. Let them hear the good stuff. Blessings on you guys. All right.
And you as well. Have a great night, y'all.
You too, man.
Cheers, fellas.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
All right. The Voyagers Podcast is produced by Sugar Sled Productions and recorded in Kula on the island of Maui. It's hosted by me, David Glenn Taylor. Thank you for listening to Season 1. I really enjoyed putting it together, and I hope you did too. I'm already working on next season. We've got a famous author, we've got a dog mushing champion. It's going to be awesome. Season 2's first episode will drop January 5th of 2021. Can you believe that? 2020. It's almost over. It's almost over. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. It helps me grow the audience. It's going to keep the conversations going for Season 2. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor or in supporting the podcast, just go to voyagerspodcast.com and click the link to become a Patreon supporter or to become a sponsor. Go ahead and shoot me an email, david@voyagerspodcast.com. A huge mahalo nui for all of my friends listening, and we will see you in the new year.